She's just here to pour drinks. That's what my father said, to a room full of billionaires. While I stood there in heels that pinched, gripping a tray of martinis so tight my fingers turned white. They didn't even look at me. Not really. Just nodded, smiled, laughed at my dad's jokes while I played waitress at a dinner supposedly celebrating our family's company's biggest deal yet. But what they didn't know, what he didn't know, was that I already owned 48% of the company. Quietly, legally, secretly. And tonight, this little dinner party was going to be the last time they'd ever look down on me. Let me rewind. My name's Ava, I'm 29, and I was never supposed to be the CEO of anything, at least not in my family's eyes. My father, Richard Langston, is the type of man who built an empire with steel in his spine and ice in his chest. He has 3 kids, but only one golden child, my sister, Claire. Claire got the Ivy League education, the Range Rover for her 18th birthday, and the corner office with the skyline view. I got hand-me-down laptops, sarcastic comments about trying harder, and the storage closet they called my workspace. It wasn't just favoritism, it was strategic erasure. Anytime I succeeded, Claire did it faster. Anytime I failed, it was proof I didn't have the Langston fire. I told my dad I wanted to lead the tech division once. He laughed. "Sweetheart, let Claire take care of that. You're better at creative things, like hospitality. Hospitality. Like pouring drinks." The first time I saw the guest list for the investor dinner, my name wasn't on it. Claire's was, right next to co-chair Langston Futures. I was listed in tiny italics at the bottom. Support staff Ava Langston. Support staff. They made me rehearse cocktail recipes while Claire rehearsed her speech about female leadership. The irony? The slide deck she'd be presenting was mine. My research, my vision, my algorithm. I caught her deleting my name from the footer the night before. I told myself to breathe. It wasn't the first time they stole from me. There was the startup I launched at 24. They called it immature and refused seed funding. 6 months later, Claire launched the same idea under a different name. With Dad's full backing. When I confronted her, she smiled. "You're the ideas person, I'm the face." Still, nothing hurt like the incident 2 years ago. I'd spent 14 months redesigning our client onboarding system. It was brilliant, scalable, lean, and intuitive. Claire tested it with a few high-profile clients, and then claimed she'd built it herself. Dad called me into his office and said, "You should be proud of your sister. She really pulled that off." I laughed bitterly. "It was my work." His face darkened. "Claire doesn't waste time claiming things. She just does them." That day, I didn't go home. I drove around until my tank hit empty, and somewhere on the side of a dead road, crying into a cup of gas station coffee, I made a promise to myself. They will never steal from me again. So I started documenting everything. Emails, Slack messages, watermark drafts, video logs, witnesses. I created a digital paper trail so detailed it would make a prosecutor weep. But even more than that, I started buying shares, quietly, strategically. Whenever the company diluted to raise capital, I bought in, under an alias, using LLCs I registered through a law firm no one at the company had ever heard of. By the time the big investor dinner rolled around, I owned 48% of Langston Futures through 3 holding firms, just shy of a controlling stake. But I wasn't going to stop there. The night of the dinner, I was told to wear black. "Something elegant but invisible," Claire texted me, "so you don't distract the guests." I wore the black dress, but I also wore a wire, because what they didn't know was that the SEC had launched an anonymous inquiry into Langston Futures, prompted by a concerned whistleblower who had submitted over 300 pages of documented fraud, IP theft, and misrepresented contributions. My contributions. The ones Claire claimed as hers. The ones my father used to pitch to tech giants as next-gen proprietary breakthroughs. So, as I moved around the dining room, tray in hand, I listened. I recorded. I watched Claire bask in the spotlight while quoting lines she didn't write, describing tech she didn't understand. Until the final toast. That's when it happened. "Let's all raise a glass," my father said, standing beside Claire, "to the future of Langston Futures, and to the woman who made all of this possible." I took a step forward, tray still balanced, smile glued on. "Claire," he continued, "your brilliance, your leadership, your vision, they've brought us here." I didn't blink. Not once. Claire smiled like a pageant queen. The investors clapped. And then the man at the end of the table, the CEO of a major fund we were courting, looked at me. Really looked at me. He frowned. "Wait a second. Ava Langston?" I nodded slowly. "Weren't you the one who published that white paper on adaptive onboarding algorithms last year?" Claire froze. Her smile twitched. My father laughed, waving him off. No, you're thinking of someone else. Ava's just here to..." "Pour drinks," I said softly. "Yes. Apparently, that's what I'm good at." The CEO didn't laugh. Instead, he set his glass down and said something that changed everything. "That's funny, because I was told she owns everything." Claire's face cracked. My father's hand twitched at his side. The room fell silent, and I just smiled, because the game had already started, and they were already losing. The moment he said it, I was told she owns everything. The energy in the room snapped like a wire under pressure. Claire let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, he's joking, right?" she said, eyes darting toward our father, then me, then the investors, like she couldn't find solid ground to stand on. Dad straightened his jacket and cleared his throat. "Let's not get sidetracked with..." Confusion. But the CEO wasn't confused. He slid his phone across the table, displaying an email chain. My email, my signature, my LLC, and an investor bulletin clearly stating Ava Langston as the controlling interest behind the shell firm buying up Langston shares over the last 18 months. The name of the firm? Blackfern Capital. And suddenly, Claire wasn't the face anymore. She was a mask, slipping fast, but this wasn't the climax. Not yet. This was the unraveling. You see, I hadn't just exposed their lie. I'd engineered a reckoning, slow, methodical, and painfully public. Let me take you back 3 months. Dad had called a strategic meeting at the house. Claire sat at the head of the table, casually flipping through my reports like they were hers. I wasn't invited, again, but I watched through the glass door, silent as a ghost. That night, I caught Claire on the balcony, wine in hand, whispering to our head of engineering. "Just smooth over the prototype bugs before the investor pitch. Doesn't matter if the data's real, it's the confidence that counts. Fake data, deliberate deception. I had it all on tape. And from that moment on, I stopped trying to be part of their table. I decided to build the damn building. In private, I was relentless. I met with compliance lawyers and tech ethics consultants. I partnered quietly with an ex-SEC investigator, feeding him every shady deal and fabricated number they buried under vision decks and projected futures. I even spoke at a small closed-door conference under a pseudonym. The title of my talk? What Happens When Your Family's Company Becomes Your Prison? It got picked up by 3 whistleblower forums, and that's how Blackfern Capital stopped being a mystery and started being a threat. Still, they underestimated me, because to them, I was just the girl in the background, the disappointment, the glorified assistant, until the dinner, until the room stopped laughing. Let's go back to that night. After the CEO's bombshell, I played it cool. I collected empty glasses, smiled politely, and disappeared into the kitchen. But I heard everything. Claire's hissed panic, my father's defensive bark. Don't be ridiculous. Ava couldn't manage a lemonade stand. She's bluffing, right? I'll call Mark at legal in the morning. But it was already too late. Because what they didn't know was that I had scheduled a board meeting for 9 a.m. the next day, and as majority shareholder, I had the legal right to call it. Back in the kitchen, I took a deep breath, and then I broke. Not in front of them, never in front of them, but behind that stainless steel counter, I slid to the floor, shaking, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might split my chest open. Years of gaslighting, manipulation, dismissal. It all came crashing in. I thought of being 17 and overhearing my dad say, "Ava's smart, but she doesn't have killer instinct. She's too soft." I thought of the time Claire accidentally forwarded my strategy memo to competitors and then blamed me for the leak. I thought of how I used to cry into my pillow because I believed them, believed I wasn't enough, that I couldn't be enough. And now here I was, sitting on a cold tile floor, moments away from shattering everything they'd built on my back. I wanted to scream, to cry, to rage. Instead, I pulled out my phone and reread the quote pinned to my lock screen. "You don't rise by being invited. You rise by making them regret not inviting you." And then I stood up. The next morning, the boardroom was silent. Dad sat at the head of the table like nothing had changed. Claire sat beside him, smile tight, eyes rimmed red. The rest of the board, mostly old friends and yes men, shifted uncomfortably. Then the door opened, and the CEO from last night walked in. Dad stood. "What the hell is this? You're not on the board." The CEO just smiled. "Not yet." And behind him came the surprise guests, 2 proxy board members from Blackfern Capital, seats I'd legally reassigned under emergency restructuring protocols. Then me. I walked in last, not in black, in white, crisp, powerful, silent. Claire's mouth opened, but no words came out. My father looked like he'd swallowed glass. I took my seat, directly across from him, looked him in the eye. "This emergency meeting has been called to address a number of serious concerns," I said. "Namely, intellectual property theft, securities fraud, misrepresentation to investors, and breach of fiduciary duty." Claire choked. "You're not serious." I slid a thick binder onto the table, labelled Evidence. "I've already submitted this to regulators, but the board deserves to see it too." My voice never cracked, because this was the moment I'd rehearsed 1,000 times in my head. Dad leaned forward. "You'd burn down your own family?" "No," I said coolly. "You did that. I'm just showing everyone where the fire started." The board flipped through the binder. Photos, screenshots, emails. One by one, heads dropped. Mouths fell open. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." Then I dropped the final card. Effective immediately, I'm executing my rights as majority shareholder to call for a vote of no confidence in the current leadership. Silence. "Seconded," said the CEO. Claire's voice cracked. "You can't do this." I met her eyes. "Claire, I'm not doing this to you. I'm doing this because of you." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "I built this company." "No," I said quietly. "I did. You just slapped your name on it." The board voted, unanimously. Claire, removed. My father, retired with honours, a polite way of saying fired under pressure. And me, unanimously appointed as interim CEO. The same girl they made serve drinks, the same girl they ignored, dismissed, erased. But it wasn't over yet. Because the best part, the twist they never saw coming, was still waiting for them in the glove box of my car. The note, the photo, the contract. The final truth they'd buried years ago. That I was about to dig up. The boardroom was still humming when I stepped into the elevator. The vote had passed. The reign of Richard Langston and his prodigy daughter Claire was officially over. And I was now interim CEO of the empire they built on my back. But I wasn't done, because there was one final truth left to unearth. The truth they buried with contracts, lies, and signatures forged in arrogance. And it had been sitting, quietly, for years, In the glove box of a car they thought I'd never drive again. Let's rewind 5 years. I was 24, fresh out of grad school, hungry, brilliant, and stupid enough to believe that being blood made me safe. Back then, I'd created a machine learning algorithm, years ahead of its time. Adaptive onboarding, real-time adjustment, predictive UX pathways. It had the potential to revolutionize user experience across entire industries. And it was mine. Until the night Claire brought me wine in the garage. "Dad wants to file the patent under Langston Futures," she said, leaning against the doorframe like a spider dressed in silk. "He says it's cleaner that way, easier to raise capital." I was hesitant. I still had my name on the work. She smiled. "You'll get full credit. We're family. Trust us." I signed. Naively. No lawyer, no review. 2 months later, I was scrubbed from the filing. My name was nowhere. And when I confronted my father, "You were an intern, Ava. Be grateful we used your little idea at all." The next day, I nearly crashed my car into a ditch, crying so hard I couldn't see the road. That car, a dented 2006 Corolla I'd bought with my own money, was the only thing in my life they hadn't touched, and that's where I found it. Slipped under the glove box liner. A note, handwritten, from my mother. "Ava, if you're ever betrayed, know this. I saw it coming. I left you the truth. It's all in the safe deposit box. Use the key. Take what's yours. Mom." My breath caught. My mother died when I was 19. Cancer, fast, sudden. And yet, here was her voice, her protection, reaching across time. Inside the glove box was a small velvet pouch. Inside that, a single bronze key. I didn't open the box then. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew I wasn't ready. Not yet. If I was going to destroy them, I had to do it right. So I waited. Until I was Ava Langston, CEO. Until I was feared. Until I was undeniable. After the board vote, I walked to my car. That same dented Corolla, parked 2 blocks away under a flickering streetlight. I pulled out the pouch, slipped the key into my hand, and drove. The safe deposit box was in a dusty corner of an old bank branch in Brookfield. No cameras, no questions. The box slid out like a drawer of secrets. Inside was a folder. Inside the folder, the original IP agreement, dated, signed, notarized, my name, clear as day, as sole inventor and legal owner of the algorithm that had built the company's billion-dollar future. Alongside it was a USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop right there, in the bank parking lot. Video files, dozens of them. My mom, recording meetings between my dad and early investors. Claire parroting my pitches. Discussions about scrubbing me from filings to clean the narrative. Proof. Undeniable. 2 days later, I called a press conference. Not a Langston Futures press event, my event, backed by Black Fern, live-streamed globally. Reporters filled the room. Cameras flashed. I walked onto the stage in a cream suit. Clean lines, no jewelry, just fire in my veins. I took a breath. "My name is Ava Langston. I'm the new CEO of Langston Futures. And today I'm here to reclaim my legacy." Gasps. I clicked the remote. Slide 1, the original IP filing with my signature. Slide 2, video of my dad laughing about burying my name. Slide 3, Claire at 26, telling an investor, "Ava's just better in the background." I paused. Let the silence soak in. This company was built on lies. My ideas, stolen. My identity, erased. But no more. The internet erupted. I Amava trended in 14 countries. Every tech journal, financial outlet, and ethics blog ran the headline, "The CEO who poured drinks, then took the throne." Claire tried damage control, posted a blurry selfie crying, captioned, "Family is complicated." Dad went radio silent. probably in a lawyer's office, shredding documents. But it was already over. Langston Futures stock dipped, then surged. Investors loved the scandal, especially when I rolled out my next-gen roadmap and announced an AI division built entirely by engineers I handpicked, not inherited. But I wasn't done. I scheduled one final meeting. Off the record. Just me, Claire, and my father, at our childhood home. The same long table they used to discuss business while I set out the plates. They arrived before me, already arguing, blaming each other. I walked in, calm, measured, ice in my veins. Claire stood. "Ava, please, we can fix this." "You had 10 years to fix it," I said. "Now I'm fixing it without you." Dad folded his arms. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said, placing a slim folder on the table. "You did." Inside were 2 documents, Claire's official ban from any leadership position at Langston Futures, and a severance offer for my father, conditional on silence. He flipped through them, rage on his face. "This isn't justice, it's revenge." I looked him dead in the eye. "Number, this is justice. Revenge would have been me making you pour drinks." Claire broke down, begged, sobbed, said she was lost without the company. I stood, smoothed my jacket. "You built a throne on my bones. Now I'm burying your crown." And with that, I left. Outside, the sky cracked open, thunder rolling across the city. It felt biblical. But in my chest, silence, peace, power. Because I didn't just win. I rewrote the rules. 2 weeks later, I walked into the Langston Futures headquarters, now rebranded under a new name, AVA Technologies. No more fake smiles. No more chairs I wasn't allowed to sit in. No more being invisible in rooms I helped build. I stepped through the glass doors, heels echoing like war drums across the polished marble. A new receptionist greeted me with genuine warmth. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. The lobby, once adorned with Claire's photo, was now bare, waiting for something real. And behind me, a team. Not of followers, of believers, engineers, analysts, designers, many of them people my father and sister once laughed out of interviews for not being polished enough. I hired them, gave them keys, let them lead, because I knew what it meant to be shut out. On my first day as full CEO, I gathered the company on the top floor. I stood on the same stage where Claire once rehearsed fake charm, where my father barked orders, and I told the truth. Most of you didn't know my name a year ago, and that's okay. I was taught to stay small, to be useful, not loud, but not anymore. I paused, scanning the room. My name is Ava Langston. I created the algorithm that built this empire. I was written out of my own legacy, and now I write every chapter. The room erupted, not out of politeness, out of recognition. Weeks passed, then months. The company surged in ways we never imagined. When I scrapped the legacy leadership structure and opened every major decision to transparent council votes, the media called it radical. But it worked. When I made a public fund for female founders betrayed by their own teams, the Blackfern Grant, named after my holding firm, people cried. And when I started a mentorship program for girls in tech, we had over 2,000 sign-ups in the first week. But none of that compared to the moment that came one rainy Thursday. I was at a cafe, reviewing a pitch deck, when an older woman approached. "I'm sorry," she said, eyes welling. "My daughter watched your press conference. She left her abusive startup partner. You saved her." I didn't know what to say, because for so long I thought saving myself would be the hardest thing I'd ever do. But now I saw something bigger. That revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about healing me and giving others permission to do the same. One evening, I went back to the house, the one I grew up in, the one where dreams went to die, quietly, in corners, under the weight of other people's egos. It was empty now, dusty, silent. I walked into the garage, the one where I coded my first prototype while they drank champagne upstairs. The Corolla was gone. I'd donated it to a women's shelter, but the oil stain on the floor remained. A scar, and a reminder. I stood there for a long time, listening, not for ghosts, for peace. And I found it. I didn't destroy Claire. She lives in a different city now, posts soft-lit yoga selfies, probably still tells people she was misunderstood. And that's fine. She can have her fiction. I own the facts. As for my father, he signed the severance, took the silence, moved to Arizona. I get a stiff holiday card once a year, all caps, no emotion. But I sleep better now, because I no longer need his apology. I became the person his lies said I'd never be. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the moment I walked into that dinner party with a tray of drinks. Humiliated, invisible, broken. And I whisper to that version of myself, they saw a waitress. But you were a queen in waiting. One last thing, you want to know what was inside the envelope in the glove box, the one my mother left for me. It wasn't just legal proof. Tucked at the very bottom, there was a photo, one I'd never seen before. Me, age 7, sitting beside her at a computer, laughing. On the back, in her slanted handwriting, one day they'll serve you. And they did. Not drinks, but silence, respect, consequences. I didn't just show up. I showed them who I became without them. I didn't beg for their approval. I made them irrelevant, and I didn't take their power. I replaced it. Ever had your own family write you off? Share it in the comments. Like and subscribe if you believe rising above is the real revenge. Send this to someone who needs to hear. You don't need their approval, because the best revenge is never revenge.